All right. Well, welcome everybody. Hello.
Hello, hello.
Hello.
We are
We
here.
are we are here. I know it's been a
Anita.
minute,
Yes, and I'm Anita.
and I'm Angelique, and
And we
we are
are
two
two
A's
A's that
that can
can be
be
beat.
B's.
Yes, we can.
Yes, absolutely.
Cheers.
Cheers. Cheers. Cheers. Mm-hmm.
Well, we've been both looking very forward to this interview, and we are so excited to have with us not only my daughter, but also a beautiful person that I just would love to introduce herself as Jay Miller.
Welcome, Jay.
And we just thought that today we were going to have a special interview with her because we know there's people out in our audience. We are attracting all different types of people. And we just thought in light of all of what we're going through and transsexual people and people of the LGBTQ community, my daughter and I have gone through a journey for quite a while, and I'm excited to share this with you all. And I'm not liking my light. I'm going to turn the light on because something is off right here. But anyway, before we do that, I just want to say we're going to have a great interview about her journey as identifying as non-binary. And we just want her to share her experience for those in our audience that may be going through the same thing or thinking about the same thing and maybe wanting to embark on this journey themselves. And if she can share some of what she's gone through, we thought maybe this could help someone.
Absolutely.
So
Absolutely.
we'd like to introduce Jay Miller.
Miller.
Hey all. I go by Jay. I do identify as non-binary, trans. I am in the like the process right now of transitioning, as they call it. Um, so yeah, I'm just gonna talk a little bit about how I got here, really. So to go back, I first like I could say mom, right? I could call you
Yes, you
mom,
can call
right?
me mom. Yes, you can
Okay,
call me.
okay, okay. So um
Yes,
so
you can
wait,
call
so
me
I
mom.
came out what about
Eighth grade.
freshman year? Yeah,
Eighth
like about
because we
yeah,
put them in
yeah.
counseling in eighth grade.
Right. So I came out as lesbian around that time. Um Middle school going to high school, it was just kind of confusing. You don't know how to go about it, especially, growing up in like a religious, home and things like that. You think of, well, I don't want to sin. I don't want to do these things. Like, I don't want to, disappoint my parents or anything like that. During the time. So, I mean, kind of coming from, the lesbian background, when you're younger, that's all you know. You don't know anything about the trans community and you don't know anything about non binary. So, a lot of masculine women will identify as lesbian, starting as lesbian. So, as you get older and you start to learn yourself and you do question your gender, that's where you kind of stick into the non-binary, category. That's so going back, non-binary really means it can be someone who feels as if they're not male or female, or it can mean that someone feels like they're both. Um, so that's kind of the difference between non-binary and coming out as trans. But sometimes some of the people in the non-binary community do the same type of transitioning that people do in the trans community.
Hmm.
So that's kind of this distinction between the two because I know that, talking to you, you didn't even know, what non-binary was,
No, I
you
did.
know.
And I'm usually trying to make sure that I'm pretty abreast of the community because of our journey and knowing that I have a lesbian daughter and definitely wanting to understand the whole community better and understanding what you're feeling and how you feel in society, which was most important to me. is that, you know, you're already a Black female, but then adding on being a lesbian, I know that's even more of a challenge in the community, in the society. So when you came to me and talked to me about being non-binary, I was like, okay, all right, so what is that? So once you explained to me, I was like, I absolutely understand. I absolutely can relate, because I know that we all don't fit in a box. We all don't fit in compartments. You know, we all are different individuals and different. It's not about every time what's in the bedroom and who you prefer in the bedroom. It's about how you identify as an individual and as a person. And so that meant that you felt different on the, what you saw on the outside, you felt different on the inside. So you had to, you're trying at this time and the process of trying to match how you feel on the inside with who you are on the outside. You know, you're outside to match how you feel on the inside, per se.
Right.
Yeah. And
Yeah.
the first time I actually heard the term, and of course, you know, I follow entertainment. So I was watching something, and the young lady who is on Billions, she was also in the last John Wick film. She was the one that was part of the, I forget what the actress name is, but she was on The View talking about how she considers herself non-binary. And that was the first time I had heard that term. I was like, okay, so the first thing I think of that's okay, that's a new one for me. And you know, I never want to offend anyone, so that's why it caught my ear, because I'm you know, I'm aware of transgender, lesbian, LGBTQ, and then I'm like, okay, now we're putting non-binary into the mix. So that's another one, you know, and I'm one of those people, I just don't want to be offensive. So when I heard the term, I was like, well, that makes complete sense. That I don't understand why that kind of wasn't first kind of initiated, because you know, sometimes, you know, women can be aggressive, and sometimes, you know, we fall into the feminine. So I could understand how that could be, how that could come about, because really you're just fluid. And so to me, it makes complete sense.
Yeah.
So, you know, I'm not one of those people that shy away from anything. So when I heard it, I was like, when Anita was telling me, I was like, I've heard this before. It had been years ago. And then when I looked it up again, I said, okay, that's what that means.
That's exactly what we understand.
And so I guess my question for you, Jay, and I know you talked a little bit about it, is it's different labels. So I don't want to I don't want to confuse things. So when you're non-binary and you're lesbian, how does that work
In your community?
in your community? How does that work?
No, yeah, I get it. So with non-binary, it's not so much a how do you describe it? So lesbian would be like my preference, right? If I were to identify as a woman. So with non-binary, I identify more as a male than I do female.
Okay.
So I wouldn't identify myself as lesbian, right? Because I don't fluctuate. They call it a spectrum. I don't fluctuate on that spectrum. It's either I feel like a male or I just don't feel like any gender, right? And with other people, it could be different, you know, it could be different. So for me, I wouldn't call myself a lesbian. I would call myself queer.
Okay.
Right?
Queer.
I would call myself queer. Yeah.
Okay.
Got you.
All right. Got you. That makes sense. So how were you feeling that brought you to the point? Because I know people feel, what do they call it? Dysphoria or something internally. So how did you identify that that is how you started feeling, to where, yes, initially when you came out in 8th grade, you know, brought yourself to where, okay, I'm understanding lesbian as my identity right now. So at which point did you feel that dysphoria to where you went to research and figure out, okay, what am I feeling and what do I need to do next to make myself feel in a place where I, you know, fit into who I think I
Okay, so this about to get a little vivid, Mom. Okay,
Hey,
just to warn you.
your mother is.
Did she say vivid? Like, I'm like, what?
Yeah.
You know me as mom, but my friends
So,
know me as.
Right. I'm like, you know who you talking
okay.
to? No, I'm just
You
kidding.
know who you're talking to, right?
So for me, even as I was young, I pictured myself as a male. Like yes, I identified as lesbian because that's all I
That's what
knew.
you knew,
But
right?
inside, I felt like a male. Like as you knew, that's how I dressed, right?
Mhm.
That's how I felt. I've always been
Yeah,
tomboy. That's
yeah,
always happened. Whether it was playing football on the during recess or whatever, I've
true.
always been a tomboy. But when you started exploring having boyfriends or girlfriends and things like that, for me, I always felt like I was a man. Like I felt like the man in the relationship. It wasn't so much like, oh yeah, I'm the other woman in the relationship. You know what I mean? So for me, that's when, as I got older, you kind of feel like, okay, well, my body doesn't match how I feel on the inside. My body doesn't match how. So that's when I started, getting sports bras and
Mhm.
trying to suppress my chest,
Mhm.
wearing 2 or 3 or whatever, and caring how it looks. And
Right.
yeah, I did that for a while. And as I got older and you start to take gender classes in college and other things
Right.
like that, and you learn that there are other places where you could be comfortable and identify yourself as, and you're not like, well, feeling like you're not welcomed anywhere because you don't fit in, how they place you in a box.
Exactly.
So for me, I just started exploring. I started doing research and becoming interested in learning about more gender once I started taking that gender class in college. And
Mhm.
once I did, it kind of just clicked. And I'm
Mhm.
like, for me, dysphoria was like since I've came out. I always looked in the mirror and just felt like I didn't like fit my body didn't fit how I felt on the
Right.
inside. Like it just didn't match. And
I'm the
like when I looked in the mirror, I didn't want a chest there. Sometimes I did want, facial hair or things like that. So it just didn't match for me at all.
Mhm.
That's what it was. It just didn't match.
Okay.
So that's where my dysphoria kicked in. And, after going through dysphoria for so many years, it takes a toll. Like it just takes a toll. You start dealing with anxiety, you start dealing with depression and things like that. So,
Right.
you know, that's
Mental
when I
health, your
just
mental health start to get affected.
right.
Mhm.
Yeah, so that's when I decided, well, the only thing that I was mostly scared was all of the relationships I built around me too. You know, like it's almost like having to come out of the closet twice. Coming out the first time was already hard enough
Right.
Right.
on everyone around me. So having to do it twice and then saying I'm coming out as trans, I mean, that's a lot. That's
Yeah,
a lot,
yeah, that is. It
So
is. Yeah, it takes courage. It takes a lot
yeah,
of courage because you don't know how people are going to accept you. You don't know how people are going to feel about you. And if those relationships are going to flourish, are they going to diminish? Yes, that's like anything, change, and giving what you are to other people of yourself in any relationship. If something changes in that relationship, you don't know how people are going to deal with it. I
yeah,
understand.
Yeah.
yeah. So it was tough to decide to, like, okay, like enough is enough. But,
Mhm.
if I just kept waiting, it was just gonna keep, progress.
And
Like it
that's
was just gonna
causing more
keep
harm to your mental health.
Right.
Yeah.
right. Yeah.
Mhm.
So I just, it was hard. It was really hard, but like now I'm like happier than I've ever been. And I feel like more of myself, or at least that I'm becoming who I was born to be, like who I'm supposed to be. So
So
it's
what
like
steps
feeling
have you
comforted
taken
in your
to get
own
to that
body.
point? What decisions have you made to get you to that point?
So right now I'm going through hormone therapy, which is called HRT. They call it HRT. Um, so if you hear my voice crack, that's why. But yeah, I started HRT, which is a process of transitioning, whether it's trans or non-binary. That's just like the first step that you take. But some people decide not to go on hormones, and some people decide to just get top surgery, which is a hysterectomy.
Right.
which is removing, you know, the breast tissue and things like that, which mine is coming up in October. So, you know, that's another step towards transitioning as well. But yeah, like getting to that point, it took a lot of counseling, I could say that.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
you know, um after going through counseling though, you know, it kind of really lets you know that, you know, it's okay to be who you feel like you are, you know,
Right.
and
Right.
not to suppress it. So,
Well, Jay, I want to say I am, I've known you since you were little.
yeah.
So hearing you talk this way, I am extremely, extremely proud of you for taking this step in your life at a young age. A lot of people suffer a lifetime
Mm-hmm.
before
Yeah,
they figure these things out.
that's true.
And
That's true.
one of the things I have a question with, I know it was difficult to go through this twice, first coming out as lesbian and now coming out as non-binary, to your family. How do you make this adjustment in the workplace?
Hmm.
I know you're out there, you're going to school, and so how do you transition in those areas? Because not everybody gets it.
Right.
Right.
And so I'm sure there's a conversation that you may be experiencing now that you're having to have as you go through this process. So can you talk a little bit about that?
Yeah, so for me, the first thing would be to try and legally change my name because that kind of helps when you're applying for jobs, you know, you don't have to give, if they see your government name, and of course, you know, as humans, the first thing that we do is look at somebody and we
Right.
go off of their looks to
Right,
Right.
identify them as what their gender
Right.
is.
I'm here
right,
this
So if you're, of course, if your name doesn't, you know, add up to, you know, what you look like, that's when, you know, they kind of make assumptions in their heads and things like that. So yeah, the first thing for me would be definitely name changing. And of course, you can change your gender as well, if you feel the need to on your IDs and things like that as
And
well.
is there any
Um,
legal thing you have to do for that, or you have to do the name change first?
um, it depends on what state you live in. I know everybody's like rules are different in each state,
Okay.
but I
Okay.
think in Georgia that you can go and get, I think you can get your driver's license, like the gender changed, but I think you have to you don't have to have the name change, but it makes sense to go get the name change first before you go get the new driver's license so that your new name will be on the driver's license and not the old one, you know. So as far as like in the workplace, for me, I'm in IT, so I've kind of like, it's kind of a luxury a little bit because,
mm-hmm,
you know, most of the places nowadays, like the not, well, the bigger companies or the ones that I tend to like try to work for, they don't really, you know, kind of ask questions about those things.
Okay.
So it's kind of a don't, you know, don't ask, don't tell type of thing, whatever.
mm-hmm,
Mm-hmm.
So for me, I mean, it can, not all people have that same luxury, so it
Okay.
can be a bit, you know, awkward
Right.
because somebody can come up to you and, you know, ask questions like, hey, your name is such such, but you know what I mean, like they could come up to you and ask you those things, even though that new bill was passed about
Mm-hmm.
you know, not being able to discriminate in workplace
Right.
or whatever.
right,
But they still have the right to, you know, kind of discriminate on your job application, or when you come in for an interview and they're like, oh well, I don't know, they
Right.
kind of look, you know, different than what I see on paper and things like that. So it can be very sticky in the workplace.
Yeah.
It can
Yeah.
be very
mm-hmm,
sticky in the workplace. So to somebody, what I would say to somebody like transitioning right now, because if you are in the process of transitioning, it can be hard if you're already established and you're already in, you know,
Right.
corporate
Right.
work
Right.
life,
There. Yeah.
and they see the entire process. You feel
Mm-hmm.
me?
mm-hmm,
So it's like it, that's when it tends to get, you know, a little bit awkward because how do you explain that while you're
Right,
transitioning at a company
right,
that you've been at
right.
for a long time? So
Right.
Yeah, yeah, that's a whole different aspect of it.
Mm-hmm.
Okay,
Mm-hmm.
so you've just begun the hormonal process.
mhm.
And then you're going to do the top surgery, but everyone's situation is different. They may decide to do the whole thing or the top or the bottom or something different.
Mhm.
So you went through a deep psychological testing prior and had to get approval to even go be able to be eligible for the surgery. So, you know, for those people who may not know those steps, what was the initial step that you took in that direction to even get the ball rolling for yourself? And I know we're going to be cognizant of time because I know we have to stop at some point
I was just
and
about to,
restart. So
yes,
maybe we will stop and restart that for the next segment.
yes. Let's stop at that question and we'll come right back and we'll let Jay answer.
Okay, so we will leave and go back in
Yes,
to the next invite. And
yes.
Jasmine, you have that.
Okay.
Okay.
All
All right.
right.
Let's do that.
All right. So we're back.
Yes. So
Okay.
we're going to continue on with that question of how you, what were your initial steps to even move forward for someone who wouldn't know how to begin or what to do. I know you went through the psychological testing, as I said before, and you had to get approval. You found a surgeon. So that person who's even thinking about it or has some idea that this is something that they may want to do, what was your initial step and how did it even, what did you even do to get started?
Yeah, so definitely first would be to find a either a gender therapist or, you know, a psychiatrist that's LGBTQ plus friendly and start there. Some you would go see, like if you want to get on HRT, you would see a endocrinologist, which will they'll, you know, take your blood and make sure that your hormone levels are good and that, you know, all your tests come back clear. And then they'll then prescribe you to take your preferred hormones.
And did you have
And
to get approval for HRT by going to a psychologist?
so it depends on the endocrinologist. So I went for my own benefit to make sure that I was, you know, everything that I was processing in my head was, you know, mentally okay, and that, you know,
Mhm.
it's always good to get someone to listen
A
and to
professional. Yeah.
give you feedback on, you know, what's wrong and what's right, because sometimes, you know, we're human, we act off of emotions and things
Right.
like that.
Right.
So I did speak with my therapist during that time, and you know, some endocrinologists do require it. It turned out that mine didn't require me to go ahead and get those letters, because when you do go to the psychiatrist, they will like give you these letters, which is letters for HRT and a
Okay.
letter for um also to get a hysterectomy to get your chest removed. And so for those letters, you only need those if you're going to go through insurance, because they now do have, you know, trans coverage. They'll
Okay.
cover, you
Okay.
know,
Well, that's good.
like top surgery,
Oh, I
and
didn't know
you
that.
know, they'll cover for your hormones.
Okay.
So for me, they do cover my hormones as well. I think I only pay like $15 a month, right?
Okay.
And as far as the surgery, they covered about 80% of the surgery. And the surgeries can range from about $6,000 to $10,000. So, you know, I'm not coming out of pocket for much. And sometimes, you know, and for me, I didn't start hormone therapy. If I would have started hormone therapy and done it for a year, they probably would have covered 100% actually.
Oh,
Oh,
okay.
wow.
Okay.
And
Wow.
so that's only because they see it as, you know, for insurance purposes, they see it as, you know, if they're already in the process, if they've stayed on hormones for that entire year, they're already further into their transitioning. And it's also better for the surgeon because, you know, when you do take hormones, it changes your body into the male, you know, structure that
Okay.
you're wanting. And so when they do remove the chest, it's a lot easier for them to,
Or the pectoral area. Okay.
right. And even vice versa, if someone's going on estrogen, if it's because what they call me is female to male, right? Born female at birth, and they identify as male, and then they identify, male at birth to male to female.
Right.
So yeah, it's the same thing that applies for them though.
Okay.
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
Wow,
So
I didn't realize that.
So after you have the surgery in October, the top surgery, you're just vying for the top surgery. Will you then need to continue on the hormones?
Yeah, that's basically by preference.
Okay.
So if you do prefer to stay on the hormones, that's totally up to you. But sometimes your endocrinologist would tell you not to just, cold turkey it, but they'll do lower dosages. But yeah, that's all up to that person's their preference. Most surgeons do want you to be on HRT though, because of, it'll change your body into the structure that you want, really. So that's why they advise it. But you're not required, because some non-binary people don't feel like either gender. And sometimes when they get chest surgery, they don't even get nipple grafts at all. They'll just go ahead and take everything off because they feel like they're not male or female.
And
so they won't have any nipples. It's just chest.
Okay.
Yeah, it's just chest. So yeah, it's just preference,
it's
really, at that point.
Per person.
Yeah.
Okay.
Mm-hmm.
That was going to be my question. I was going to be like, so when you do have a hysterectomy, most patients will go through, is it a different surgery? Is it a different surgery to do the cosmetics of it and give you nipples? Or
so they'll do either most people get a double incision, right? They'll do another double incision, which is taking it here, and it'll be a scar for all the way about up to here. And they'll take the nipples from your chest, and they'll take them and they'll actually flatten them. And once they flatten them and get them right, then they stitch them back on. So when you do come out of surgery, you'll have like these round graft things, but they'll be kind of like almost like rubber band around it, because they're basically holding the nipple flat, and it has to stay like that for a while. And we'll come out with a binder on. So binders are what people use to basically have a masculine looking chest, and I actually have one on now, but you probably can't really tell. But most people who are transitioning from female to male will actually wear binders up until they do have top surgery.
Okay.
Yeah,
makes sense.
So it's like an extreme sports bra put in one.
Okay, really. Yeah, like triple sports bra or something.
That sounds tight. That sounds tight,
yeah.
Jay.
Yeah, that sounds like you can't breathe sometimes.
Right.
That's what dysphoria will do to you. So this is why people want to go ahead and get top surgery, so that you don't have to, because binding is just, it's just, I just don't like it.
You don't feel comfortable.
You get right after a while, you're just like, oh my gosh, like,
why do I have to do this?
Right, but it helps with your dysphoria, because wearing a sports bra doesn't help. It still gives it the round figure, but if you wear a binder, it's like you get the flat chest that you want.
You get the flat illusion. Okay.
Right, because it's what they call it is passing. It's hard to identify as something that you don't pass as. So that's where it gets tricky. So you try to pass as much as you can, up until you can get the surgeries and be on HRT and things like that. So
So I don't want to get too deep in your personal business.
That means she about to get deep.
Inquiring minds want to know.
Yes, we are giving the audience what their questions may be.
Yes, and I know this is a lot. And so you're single. And I know maybe this is talked about in therapy as well. So as you are going into a new relationship, when do you think or do you need to? Because you may not need to have the talk,
Mm-hmm.
but when do you decide to let someone know, if you choose to let someone know, that you are transgender
Mhm.
Mm-hmm.
and you go
Yeah.
through
So
this surgery? Okay.
right. So for me, you know, I tend to even date like queer people or pansexual people.
Mhm.
So it's
Yeah.
never really a problem that I have. They kind of already know.
Okay.
Um, so I already let it be known, and because I have done, you know, the YouTube series and things
Yeah.
like that, people
Okay.
tend to already kind of know me. So
Mm-hmm.
it's like either the people that I meet have followed me on social media or they've seen the show and things like that. So it's like they kind of already know, but you know, I still do talk about it. I still bring it up. But I don't get, you know, too personal about it because, you know, especially if it's just casual dating, you know, you just kind of want to be on the safe side,
Right.
and feel someone out to know their intentions because you really don't know.
Right.
So for me, yeah, I just tend to date pansexual or kind of queer people
Weird.
because it just
Okay.
kind of makes it a lot easier. Because even if you date bisexuals, you know, it still might not be up to you know, it might not be their speed.
Right.
So
Right.
with pansexual people, you know, they like all walks of life. They
Mm-hmm.
don't. It's more of like a soul connection. It's more of like,
Right.
you know,
Okay.
they don't like someone based off of their
Their gender.
sexual
Mhm.
orientation, their gender, whatever, you know.
Okay.
Mm-hmm.
It's just the
Okay.
person themselves. So,
And
yeah.
how do you know that you are dealing with a pansexual person? How do you identify that?
So if I start talking to someone, I'll ask them, you know, they just
Okay.
like, what do
Okay.
you identify as, you know? Because it's always polite nowadays to ask people their pronouns,
Okay. That's
right?
Yeah.
what I wondered.
Yeah.
So, you know, if you're not sure, because sometimes you'll never know if you're sure. Someone can, you know, look like a man, identify as a man, but they could still be transitioning, trying to become a woman, and you don't
Mhm.
know that. So that's why it's
Oh,
always
Mm-hmm.
polite to ask someone's pronouns, like, what do you identify as, you know, and they'll tell you. If it's, you know, non-binary, they tend to go by they, them, you know, but if they're non-binary or and trans, it could be they, them, he, and him, or they, them, she, her, you know. So
Mm-hmm.
it
okay.
just depends, you know.
Okay.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. So
Yeah.
you kind of already put up front what you identify as and what their pronouns or your pronouns may be. You guys are more
Right.
transparent with that now.
Yeah, it's definitely something now that's like polite. You
Okay.
always
Right.
ask someone their pronouns. You just don't assume because it could be very dysphoric for somebody, and you know, you may not see it there right in your face, but these people could be going home and, you know, like looking in the mirror and hating what they see and, you
Okay.
know,
Okay.
depressed and things like that. And so it's just
Mm-hmm.
always polite to just, you know, ask someone's pronouns, you
Oh,
know.
okay.
Yeah.
So if there's someone out there right now that is listening to this, and I'm sure there will be people that will listen to this because this is going to, I think, bring attention to a subject that is kind of, especially in the Black community, not
Mhm.
addressed and not talked about and not shared.
Right.
So if there is someone out there right now, because people, like Angelique said, go through their whole lives, lose their families, or they suppress it, or they're
Yes.
depressed, or even kill themselves.
Yes.
People are struggling, especially during this pandemic. People are struggling with a whole lot of other things in addition to this, possibly. What message would you give someone right now who may be hearing you, who may have heard this, and knowing the struggle that you have had, and may not have that support system that you do have? What message would you give to them?
Um, so transitioning is really hard to do by yourself. So any resources that you can find, whether it, you know, you search things on Trans Bucket, or if you go to your local, you know, shelter to seek, you know, therapy or anything like that, I
Mm-hmm.
definitely would recommend, because it's very hard to go through transitioning by yourself. Very hard. Um, and like my support system right now in my group of friends, I honestly don't think that I could have gone through, transitioning by myself. It's definitely a lot, and
And your
sometimes you do
family.
need, right, yeah, and family.
Mhm.
Like you need that love and like support, you know, going through it. But I'm not saying it's not possible because some
Right.
people, do it. But, for me, I don't think it would have been possible for me to do if I just didn't have, that support system behind me. So,
Okay.
yeah.
So you're telling them to at least reach out and try to find them some resources, uh,
Right.
and
Yeah.
someone that can assist them through this process. Because when you
Yeah.
told
It's,
me the story of
Mhm.
people who catch an Uber to the surgery or who catch
hmm
Ubers, that's
because some people, yeah, they go
disheartening.
through surgeries, they
Yeah.
do top surgeries and things like that by themselves because their parents don't approve. And I will say this, in the Black community, I have seen some disgusting ways that parents handle it.
Mhm.
And, then you'll go, and even the documentary I've sent you the other day,
Right.
there were no Black parents, no minority parents sitting there next to their child while they were going through all of that. The only parents that were
Wow.
sitting there were white parents.
Wow.
And I'll never forget the lady said, he was never my daughter,
Wow.
you
Mm.
know, but he's still who he was when I had him, like he might have changed on the outside, but that's still my kid. But, to hear that we in the Black community, I feel like I've never, ever, ever heard or seen, a parent, helping their teen child go through that process. It's kind
Wow.
of like, shamed upon.
Right.
So that's why, there are a lot of, suicides,
Right.
um, due
Mhm.
to, lack of support in the family structure in the Black
Right.
community,
Right.
especially in the Black trans community.
Mhm.
So, I always like to talk about that because I feel like there should be more Black parents sitting next to their
Right.
kid and letting them know it's okay to be you,
Right. And we're going to love
unapologetically.
you unconditionally and
Right,
Such
unapologetically.
a
Yeah.
right. And instead, they tell them, I don't care what you're talking about. They'll identify as male and they'll still say, "Well, no, you're my daughter. That's what you came out as, and that's all I know you as, and that's
Oh,
what I'm
okay.
gonna call you."
Okay.
You know, Instead of at least saying, "Okay, well, it's a lot for me to process,
right.
Yeah.
and it's a lot to take on, but I'm willing to try. You
Right.
know,
Mhm.
I'm willing to learn. Or even just be here to talk to, just
Right.
to talk to. And sometimes that's all someone needs is just somebody to talk to,
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah.
about it.
Yeah.
So,
Like your
I've,
mother.
right. But yeah, so I think that definitely lacks a lot in the Black
Okay.
community. And, if we could get more parents,
Yeah.
it's okay if you don't agree with their
Right.
lifestyle,
Right.
but
Mhm.
to be there as a parent and to
Mhm.
just support them is different.
Mhm.
And
Right.
even if it's, you say it's against my religion, whatever, it's still your child,
Right.
and you're
Right.
still supposed to love them
Right.
just because you don't agree with their decisions or who they may love.
Right. I
It
agree.
doesn't mean that you
Right.
shouldn't love them.
Right.
So,
I
Makes
agree.
sense.
I
yeah.
agree.
Well, that's a
So
beautiful message. That's beautiful.
yeah, and I'm sure there are for those who feel like they don't have anyone. There's support groups out there that maybe can assist folks.
Hmm.
Should they look for those type of support groups? Because it could be not just the parents; it could be the entire family that
Right.
they're
Yeah.
up against. You just don't know how deep the religious thing is going in the
Right.
family.
Right.
So if they feel like they can't even go to auntie or uncle,
Hmm.
should they look for support groups out there that maybe can help them?
Yeah,
Um,
there's definitely a lot of LGBTQ plus friendly places and safe places to go.
Hmm.
I know one here is called Lost and Found. It's more of a shelter, but you
That's
can
in
also go
Atlanta.
there for,
Atlanta. We're in
yeah,
Atlanta.
in Atlanta. Yeah. They have it's kind of like a safe haven, and they'll, kind of help you, like, even if you do get kicked out of your house, you can go there and seek shelter. um in a LGBTQ, you know, friendly place. So yeah, there's a lot of resources online as well. If you go online, there's a lot of even LGBTQ like helplines and, you know, suicide lines and things like that. So there's a lot of resources out there if your family, you know, if you can just don't have anybody to talk to, whether it's family or friends. So
Awesome, awesome.
yeah.
Especially with the young people.
Yeah.
Um, I think, you know, early on we identified, or I identified that, you know, I wanted you to get into counseling early on because I could feel and see that there was a difference in you. So that's why I definitely fought for us to put you in counseling. But some people don't have that luxury, or they don't have those type of people in their lives. So them reaching out to some type of support, I commend and say absolutely.
Yep.
So, okay.
Yeah.
Well, I just want to know if there's any other questions, because I think this was awesome. I think this is much needed in our community.
Yeah.
And Jasmine, can you tell the audience, I know that you're a social media presence, so can you please tell people, or give people where you can be seen on YouTube or Instagram or wherever your platform is, to where, you know, you're doing this type of thing and trying to help those in the community?
Yeah, so my YouTube is Millie Docs. That's Milly space DOCS. So I make a lot of vlogs about, you know, transitioning right now. I did do a series a couple of years ago as well called Women of Atlanta TV, and you can find all of that footage and content on that page. And my social media, my Instagram is the official J Mills. So the official and then JMILLZZ.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right. Well, I think this was fantastic.
Yes.
And I just want to say, as a parent to this person that is non-binary, and identifying as not as male or female, and is now transitioning to male, I love her. He, him, he, whatever she wants or he wants to be. I love them unconditionally. It, as a parent, is hard because, you know, we went through feeling that feeling of, this is my baby. You brought this daughter into the world, or you brought this son into the world, but you brought them and presented them to the world to love them and to care for them and to take care of them and to give them the tools needed to live in the world. So I didn't never have gotten caught up on, or won't get caught up on, if you're male, female, or what. I just want you to be, as an individual, healthy and happy mentally and physically. And I thank God that you had a grandmother and people in your life that made you feel that way, that allowed you to have the courage to be able to go and be the person that you and our omnipotent God, that doesn't judge and loves us, and it's supposed to be complete love.
Yes.
That you're able to identify and be happy in who you are and in the body that you're in.
Yes.
Thank you. Yes, thank
and,
you.
and from your auntie from another mother. I am proud of you. Like I said, it takes some people a lifetime to figure all this out.
Yeah.
And I am happy in knowing that you have your family, you have a support group that is helping you to transition. I feel happy that you're happy. Like Anita said, that's the most important thing. You're healthy and you're happy.
That's
and
right.
who really gives a damn what anybody else thinks?
Thank
It's
you.
about
we
you.
Don't, we don't give a
Okay.
damn. All right.
You only get one life.
Thank
and
you.
if this is what's going to make you happy, then do it. And that's how I stand on it. And anybody who loves anybody, who cares about anybody, who respects anybody should feel the very same way.
Exactly. I agree.
And for those who may be out there who don't have a support group, that don't know where to start, shoot Anita and I email. We'll be more than happy, or we'll get it over to Jay, and we'll get you your answers and we'll help you. I mean, I want people to know that there's somebody out there that cares, especially during these times. You're not by yourself. There are people going, you have people out here that can help.
Now we will
Yeah.
tag all of this information inside of, we're going to post this on YouTube. We're going to post this also on Facebook. You know, we are at 2A's that can be B's at gmail.com, but we will have all of that listed, and I can't reiterate that enough. We will get it over to Jay. We will get you those resources and information that you need if you are seeing this and you need some help.
Absolutely. Absolutely. All right.
All righty.
Well, this
Well, we
has been
thank you.
great. We
All
thank
right,
you.
thanks
We
for having me,
appreciate you.
guys.
Thank you, Jay.
All righty.
This was awesome. Thank you. Take care. All right. Be
Take
All
safe.
right, take care. All right, you guys too. All
Bye-bye.
right,
Bye.
bye.